He was born as a Brahmin.
And so he has something
That's you see the pot, that's the Brahmin's, Brahmin's pot.
Okay.
And then he has a Dharma wheel here because he'll be teaching the Dharma.
Thank you.
But he's not born as a warrior because the world isn't that violent. And the Brahmin, the intellectuals are more dominant in that time because people are more peaceful.
The fierce Dharma protector at the top center?
That's the Garuda bird. He's like a protector, yes, and he has a snake of poison in his mouth. He's like the eagle birdman. Remember the birdman in Flash Gordon? He's like that. He's the Garuda. Remember the birdman? And he's up there with the Naga princesses. And these are part of the Oriole of world Buddhas. They have elephants and lions around behind them. This is a wonderful, very famous, special, precious mantra. This was a meditation place way back, 42 kings from the time of Solsen Gambo. And then all the Dalai Lamas meditated in this particular chapel. This is this is one of the sort of high points of the Potala, this chapel. So I might as well say a little something about the Jokan, because once we get there, today I believe is the first day of Sagadawa, I think. So there will be a lot of Tibetan pilgrims there, no doubt. And it'll be a real mob, and we'll get a sense of Tibetan piety and fervor. Jokan is like the Mecca of Tibet. So we won't have much chance, it's not right, it won't be a proper place really to do art history lecture, or we won't have... However, at the end of the trip, if the weather has cleared, I will go to my favorite place in Lhasa, or one of them, which is the roof of the Jokan, which is a place where Tsongkhapa in the 1390s had a vision, his first vision of Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, and he received some teachings there that we've been using actually on the first trip and we will use on the second trip. Some meditative teachings, because in these trips we're doing a double pilgrimage. We do the exterior pilgrimage to the exterior sites that are sacred to the Tibetans, and actually in the case of Kailash to the whole world, and of Asia at least, and I think now becoming more and more the West too. And we do an interior pilgrimage to sort of try to wander through the heart of the Tibetan Dharma, and with the path of meditation, the Bodhisattva vow of love and compassion, and the teaching of wisdom, of selflessness, and renunciation, and so forth. And we contemplate such wonderful topics as the preciousness of human life and the immediacy of death. I brought you here because I wanted you to see the whole thing. I wanted you to see it under its sort of semi-idyllic, like Shangri-La type of aspect, Pat, this especially to Pat, because we were organized, remember, and we shipped it. And then I wanted you to see its reality still somehow surviving underneath a sort of bunch of different circumstances, which we want to restrain our feeling of like, ooh, this, I hate that. Don't want to say that here. It irritates people, and also they might be listening, and we don't want to do that. We want to try to see through that and see that it still lives here in its vulnerability, in its low-heartedness, in the smile of the person who seems to be the loser of some exchange, the poor one, but has a different level of smile than the one who seems dominant, who's like looking all squeezed and narrow and like actually unhappy, but in charge, in power. And the one who's being like, under the gun is looking smiling anyway. It's actually more happy from the heart, I want you to see that, because that's much more interesting and exciting, actually, in a way, rather than just think, well, here I am in New York, running around, and then there's this idyllic place over there, we had a really idyllic, and I don't want to go to the grubby place, where there's these problems, I thought it'd be important for people to see that, to really understand this, because this encounter is much greater, the encounter between the sort of apogee of industrial militarism, which in a way our country does represent on the planet. And it supports in other countries too, selling the excess hardware. And, that form of life, being armed to the teeth and grabbing what we want and living for this life only and getting it all now, and when we die will be nothing, so there'll be no consequence and whatever. That, encountering what I call the inner modernity of all of life is rationalized to optimize inner education, education of the heart, but it results in outer vulnerability, and it is crushed and trampled by outer modernity and industrialization and militarism. And it has been crushed by it, and it is a state of being flattened down by it right at this moment, and yet it lives, and yet it's there. And you'll see it today in the Jokhan, in the hearts of the people who come in from the steppe and who are there, and Buddha's still living there to them. I mean, Buddha's still living on the steppe where they are, but then they come to pay respects anyway to the source of it, what they perceive as historical source of it. So we talked about the Jokhan this morning. Any questions anybody has about anything? One thing that's funny, look at the lions. They have different expressions of different lions. And the eaves and everything. The way these little chiseling things and the little things painting, all of them are supposed to be resonating with the way mandalas are visualized. The whole architecture relates to the architecture of the mandala. This is originally built in the 17th century. It's been renovated by different
First, there was a small lake where is a Chukang temple now, and then Chinese Princess Vintin, she found that place is for the built Chukang temple. The Chukang is the house of a Buddha Shakyamuni, which was brought from the Chinese Princess Vintin from Tang court. So that statue is one of the most sacred statue of a Buddha Shakyamuni in the world. 2,500 years ago, Buddha Shakyamuni, he gave in consecration for that statue. That's why the Chinese Princess Vintin, she brought that statue to Tibet for the gift of King Songtsan Gampo. And then they decided to build a Chukang temple on the lake. So Chukang was built in 7th century as it is one of the most sacred temples in Tibet.
But Shakyamuni Buddha. And with the celestial ornaments symbolizing that he's not the Shakyamuni Buddha near emanation body only of history who disappeared, who passed away into parinirvana 2,500 years ago, but he is present in this sort of celestial divine presence type of thing. And the aura behind him, that aureole with the Garuda bird at the top and all of the dragons and intricate things, that is original, I think, with the big corals and turquoises. That I think is original. It's a semi-reconstruction. Some parts of the original statue are inside it, and but it was shattered in the not just the Cultural Revolution, before that, smashed up, mortar fire. Inside here there was that kind of thing. But even before the sort of reconstruction and everything, because they love to put gold on his face, it's like a big honor to bring gold and put it on his face. It isn't there as a sort of, like the old artistic, whatever it is, 2,000 years ago. They just plaster it with gold, so he gets like a mask of gold. Because it's a big honor to offer gold to the face. So at different times people would put a new layer of gold leaf on the face. So, you don't know what it originally looked like really, because it's not kept like a museum piece. These were offered by Reting Rinpoche in the 1940s. That's the guy who found the present Dalai Lama. He was the regent. And then unfortunately came to a sad end eventually. But they are imitation of the ones that Tsongkhapa originally offered in 1409, which I was telling you about this morning during the Manlam festival, at the high moment of the Manlam festival. Is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, and the mani symbolizes the jewel of compassion, and the padma is the lotus of wisdom. And so Omanabema is like evoking the presence that in every atom there is the power of wisdom and compassion. Which is considered to be self-emanated out of the wall or out of the rock. And so that's there with them because she was the great inspirer. As I said, she was the travel guide before Acacia. She told him what to do, Tara. That's a mantra everyone should learn. Om Tare Tutare Tune Swaha. They should all learn that mantra. Maybe we'll do that later. And this was one great translator who was another disciple of Atishat. like a conch shell, you know? You hear the ocean. Try it out, see if you hear it. Look at them, they're so great, this girl. Let's meditate then for a little while. We won't be bothered by anything. The girls with their earth packing are just offering to all the deities. And the occasional saw that's just opening up a doorway to the lower realms for beings. We then look at ourselves, the way we spend our time, and we wonder, poor thing, why do you run around like that? Why do you worry like that? Why do you feel you need this and that so much? Why do you feel you lost this and that so much? Why are you so driven and so anxious and so pressed and so pushed? Instead of looking back into yourself and discovering what infinite resources, infinite contentment, infinite pleasure, infinite happiness, love, peace is there. And this gives us transcendence and renunciation. It enables us to realize we don't really need the next car, the next house, the next trip, the next whatever it is. They're not going to complete us. Our completeness we will only find inside. So this is that we mastered the first path of renunciation, transcendent renunciation. When we do, then the enlightening beings in the sky are really happy. They shine down on us like mad. We feel just completely. We need internal sunblock. The sun energy coming from within is so strong. It flows out to the beings around us. They're dazzled and happy. They feel grateful. We feel grateful. Lightning beings feel happy.
but now here only they have left about 800 monks only. And this monastery also is very bad damaged during the Cultural Revolution. And after 1984, Chinese decide the reconstruction, many part of this.
The killer of death. So once you kill death, then even death doesn't die, and it's immortal, eternal life.
For the fifth Dalai Lama, also the Jibu monastery, it was the central government of the Tibet. So the fifth Dalai Lama, he decided to rebuild the Potala Palace and move from here to the Potalas. So this is also kind of the living part of the Dalai Lamas.
We're going to go see the Maitreya. Where there was a cave, and Giant Trije, who was the founder of the monastery, lived in the cave here, and then they made this little chapel next to the rock to fill in the cave. And eventually this giant monastery of 10,000 people was built up around it. But this is where he was one of the Tsongkhapa's 8 great disciples who was with him on retreat, and he was the most psychic of them. He was always having like deep psychic experiences, and he was helping Tsongkhapa, giving him clues about things. His name was Jamyang Trije. He was really great Lama. This is the natural emanated form of the Giant Trije. This is Giant Trije, natural emanated thing. It came out of the rock. Wasn't carved. It just emerged. That was the Giant Trije who found the monastery. And then these are other natural things that came out. And then this is a natural manju tree that came out of the rock. It's in that big rock that we saw from the outside. And so this is the source of the great monastic university of Davidow. This little chapel.
Meditation cave for some couple.
Giant Trije, the founder of the monastery. You are great too. You are a great monk. Everything will be better one day. 아래 놈을 아래 텐션 쳐라 미시기 아래 텐션 쳐라 그러도 다 컨트롤 약한 치는 발로치 가서 가는 붙일 두배 내 가는 붙일 랑가리 좋지 같은 채다
Yes. Great.
Oh, oh, you're very sweet.
Every day praying peace
Yes,
We too.
in this mood.
Very too.
Thank you.
Dochichi.
Thank you.
Dochichi.
Person being the oracle, and he's in seance, and he's bending his metal sword, holding it by the blade, you see, doesn't mind, and he's giving warnings. These are all the monks, you see, this is the nature of monks who have created the ritual, and this is the representative of the government who's made the offering, and he's giving out the news to the nation, like, behave yourself. It's like, get your ass out of Iraq, you people are like not behaving right. There's corruption in the government. People are selling out the national forests. They're destroying the thing. Whatever. In other words, you have to realize this is such an amazing Tibetan society and government. So amazing that this figure, who was a person, a monk of this monastery, who would be chosen and then propitiated in a ritual. See here, the monks are doing the ritual to propitiate him. See here, and he is then inhabited by the minister of the Pehar, who is that deity over there, the white one on the white lion. And he then, in a seance, he stalks up and down like the halls of the Congress, as if he was like in America would be somebody inhabited with the spirit of Crazy Horse or something. But really, it's only just like bending swords and stuff, like an awe-inspiring thing, literally, like Clark Kent the Superman. And then he points out that this guy is like illegally elected, and this guy sold this and that, and this guy is taking money from this company and that thing. This guy is doing that other crooked thing, and like they're trembling. They haven't actually painted in the ministers, unfortunately, but it's a truly awesome. So because they had ministers in the Tibetan government, there'd be corruption, and then every year they'd have to face a wildly ferocious guy in medium trance, who was psychic and would know what was going on. So it was really a scene. I love this painting. Well, that's just his crown that he wears when he goes into seance. He's wearing a skull crown. Those 5 skulls represent the 5 wisdoms, the 5 poisons of lust, hate, desire, and so forth, transmuted into wisdom of accomplishment, wisdom of discrimination, wisdom of this and that. It's just a typical fierce deity thing. And these are little puffballs that are part of his headdress that shake around when he goes berserk, which he does. And then he passes out after he gives his message. And he wears these Central Asian like Mongolian boots because he comes from Central Asia, you see, as a deity. But this is just the minister of the deity. You say if the deity inhabited the medium, the guy would like burst a blood vessel. This is something truly great. I'm so happy to see it's been, even the beams you see have been dated nicely. They're famous for applications in the ancient time. This whole monastery is famous for its art. Somehow the inspiration of this deity made them great artists, and they were fantastic artists.
yes, yes.